Hello, my name is Elizabeth Arteaga with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office of Housing Assistance and Grant Administration. Today I'm going to be going over the Multifamily Housing Service Coordinator Program. Before I begin, I would like to first apologize to those of you who weren't able to see the first part of the presentation, but that will be archived and a link will be sent out shortly so that you are able to view the webcast. In addition, I want to remind you that we will not be able to take any questions at the end of this session, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to email those in to Carissa Janice, and I'll be setting up we'll be displaying her contact information at the end of the presentation. To start off, I'd like to give you a short program overview. The Service Coordinator Program is designed to assist the elderly and individuals with disabilities living in HUD-assisted housing and in the surrounding area to obtain specific community-based supportive services they need to continue living independently. Under this program, 3-year grants are awarded to employ and support a service coordinator who enables aging in place and independent living and to create a supportive community. A service coordinator is a social service staff person hired or contracted by owner or management agent. They are a member of the management team, and they are also viewed as a linchpin in linking housing and services to residents. A service coordinator does many things. To name a few, they do offer conflict resolution, they provide information and referral services, they provide outreach, they also provide service planning and brokering, service program evaluation and monitoring. And again, those are just a few of the things that a service coordinator does. Aside from the service coordinator grant, owners may request rent increases, special rent adjustments, and approval to use residual receipts or excess income pursuant to Management Agent Handbook 4381.5, Chapter 8. And again, this is to hire a service coordinator. If project funds are available, they must be used prior to or in place of grant funds. In fiscal year 2010, a total of $45,146,339 was awarded towards 230 grants. It is estimated that in fiscal year 2012, a total of $15 million will be awarded towards a total of 76 grants. This year's application due date is May 14th, 2012. To determine the grant amount, we will take into consideration the number of residents, comparable salaries in the area, service needs, the number of weekly work hours, and administrative expenses. These items are specified in the Multifamily Housing Service Coordinator First Time Funding Request, or Form HUD 9-1186. There is no maximum grant amount. Eligible applicants include the mortgagor entity, single asset mortgagor, single purpose ownership entity, or other corporate entity that directly owns eligible assisted housing. They must meet all threshold requirements of Section 3.C of the General Section, and they must be approved to conduct new business with HUD based on previous participation activities. The owner information in the application should match information in IRMS. Ineligible applicants include the property management companies, managing general partners, area agencies on aging. Such agents may prepare and sign application documents with authorization from the owner. The owner corporation must be indicated on all documents as the funding recipient. Eligible projects. Projects must be financed or assisted through the Section 202 direct loan, project-based Section 8, Section 221D3 below market interest rate, and 236 projects, and that's insured or assisted. At least 25% of all residents must be frail or at-risk elderly and/or disabled residents. They must be designed for elderly or persons with disabilities and continue to operate as such. They must be current in mortgage payments or have a workout agreement, and they must have a REACT score of 60 or better or have an approved plan. Projects must also be in compliance with the regulatory agreement, HAP contract, and other directives, and they must have no other available project funds to pay for a service coordinator. Ineligible projects include family projects, Section 202-811 projects with PRACs, Section 221D4 and RHS 515 projects without project-based Section 8, conventional public housing, and units with project-based housing vouchers. Eligible costs include salary, fringe benefits. The applicant should use the standard fringe rate they use to employ others. Quality assurance. This is an optional cost. You need to explain how the proposed quality assurance plan will contribute to the evaluation of the program over the term of the grant. Service coordinator training and travel. If the service coordinator will serve more than one project, then can include travel costs from project to project, but not from the service coordinator's home to the project. Supplies and materials, setting up a confidential office, and other administrative costs. Again, all of these are specified on Form HUD 91186. The quality assurance plan, if any, must outline how the program evaluation will be carried out. It must be performed by a qualified third party, and at least one annual review is required. The purpose is to identify program outcomes and performance indicators. The cap is 10% of the service coordinator's salary amount. Startup costs. Setting up a confidential office space is necessary so that the service coordinator can meet with residents. This may be a one-time only startup cost. Acquisition, leasing, rehabilitation, or conversion of space is allowed. The office must be approved by HUD field office staff, who will perform an environmental assessment if there is new construction or substantial rehab involved. The office must be accessible to people with disabilities and meet UFAS requirements. Costs may also be included for the purchase of office furniture and equipment, computer hardware, software, and internet service. A service coordinator grant may be used to continue a service coordinator program previously funded through other sources, where there is evidence that funding ends on or before November 14, 2012. The applicant must demonstrate that no other funding mechanism is available. Previous source. This includes sources other than the HUD subsidy or grant award. Funding may also be used to create a new service coordinator program where one does not currently exist. Please remember that you cannot increase the hours of a current service coordinator or add service coordinators or aides to a current program. Funding may also be used to continue a HUD-funded program whose funding is set to or has expired. The service coordinator may serve low-income elderly or disabled families living in the vicinity of an eligible development. Community residents come to your site. The number of work hours proposed in the application must be related only to the number of frail or at-risk elderly and non-elderly disabled residents of the project. Applicants cannot apply for a grant solely devoted to serving neighborhood residents. Prohibited functions. Service coordinators cannot manage social or recreational activities, provide direct supportive services, administer medication, perform property management, or direct neighborhood network centers. An owner cannot apply for the renewal or extension of current service coordinator grant, augment currently operating program, increase project's management fee, or serve only community residents. The grant cannot be used towards audit and legal fees, property management staff for supervision, training courses for property management staff, cost overruns for office space, application preparation and submission. In order to be in compliance with program requirements, the owner must identify outputs, outcomes, and performance indicators to measure outcomes achieved. This can be done via the logic model. Make private office space available where the service coordinator can meet with residents, keep resident files in a secured location, provide supervision, training, and continuing education. Section 202s must have residual receipts accounts. An environmental review may be required if constructing or rehabbing an office space. The grant term is for 3 years, and it's renewable subject to available funds. Subgrants and subcontracting. Per the NOFA, there are reporting requirements subject to the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act of 2006 as amended. Additional reporting requirements. All award recipients must submit the following: 1 semi-annual financial status report, 1 semi-annual performance report, 1 annual logic model, periodic logs payment vouchers, and 1 annual quality assurance review report if your grant includes quality assurance activities. The application process. Field staff will review and approve applications based on eligibility criteria. They then forward the information to headquarters, where service coordinator funds have been set aside for ALCP applicants, former project-funded programs, and logic model selections. So there are 3 lottery levels. Level 1 includes applications submitted by ALCP SEH applicants. Level 2 includes applications submitted by owners who need to continue a program whose funds are set to expire. And Level 3 includes applications for projects that do not currently have a service coordinator. Within each level, applicants with policy priority status, and again that is shown on or identified on your logic model, will get considered first. Headquarters will then conduct a national lottery. There are no rating factors involved in this program. Applications are not scored. Once an application is determined to be eligible and complete by field staff, it will be entered into the lottery. A budget and narratives must be included in the application. If not, then your application must be rejected. If there are any technical deficiency items, applicants must respond timely to technical deficiencies. Normally, there's a 14-day time period to respond. All responses must be faxed into grants.gov using fax cover page HUD 96011. Please remember that technical deficiency items are those that can be clarified or revised without improving the substantive quality of an application. Applicants must be contacted via email and fax if they have any technical deficiency items. An owner may submit single project applications or multiple project applications. A single project application is an application with 1 owner and 1 project. Multiple project applications are where the same owner submits one application containing more than one project. However, submitting one application for each property you own will increase your chances of selection in the national lottery. Projects must be in the same field office. There is no limit to the number of applications or projects. Projects located in different field office jurisdictions. A separate application must be submitted to each field office. Joint applications, multiple owners. You may join with one or more other owners to share a service coordinator and submit a joint application. If two or more separate owners submit a joint application, the partnership must designate a lead applicant. Individual owners do not need to sign each form, but if selected, then all must sign the grant agreement. There is no minimum number of units. The project information must be included in Form HUD 91186 for all projects. Submission requirements for ALCP applicants. Applicants must submit all required service coordinator application materials as identified in the program NOFA. Funds may be used to serve ALCP residents only or all residents. You can add hours to an existing program or create a new program. The number of additional hours per week and an explanation based on anticipated needs is required. The applicant must indicate if they want their application in the Service Coordinator Lottery if not selected for the ALCP award. Electronic submission. Applications must be submitted to www.grants.gov. You must download the Service Coordinator NOFA and the General section, and you can do this from grants.gov or HUD.gov. Please remember to complete your central contractor registration, which can take 2 to 4 weeks. There's currently a backlog, so we do urge you to complete this step as soon as possible. Please refer to the early registration guidance, the General section, this webcast, and please keep our contact information on hand in case you have any questions. The application will consist of forms from grants.gov and budget forms and narratives submitted via MS Excel, Word, or PDF attachment. Documents may be scanned or faxed, and you must use fax transmittal form HUD 96011. This form must be included with all faxed material. Guidance on faxing material is included in the General section. For technical assistance using grants.gov, you may call 1-800-518-GRANTS or email support@grants.gov. The Customer Support Center is open 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, except federal holidays. Applications must be received and validated by grants.gov by 11:59 p.m. on May 14, 2012. Paper application submissions must be received by HUD by the deadline date. Hand delivery is okay, and you must have a waiver approving a paper application submission. Required exhibits include the Service Coordinator First-Time Funding Request, Form HUD 91186, evidence of comparable salaries, a bank statement showing residual receipts, and excess income. You also must submit evidence that prior funding sources are not available. Narratives must also be included that estimate the number of frail, at-risk, and disabled residents at the project. A quality assurance proposal, if any, must also be detailed, as well as a plan to provide private office space, a plan to serve community residents, and the ALCP applicant's plan. If these items are not submitted, then your application will be rejected. In the logic model, you must select the performance measures that reflect the activities and outcomes you plan to achieve. Choosing policy priority items will give preference in application selection. This program focuses on policy priority numbers 4 and 5. Number 4 is capacity building and knowledge sharing. And number 5 is using housing as a platform for improving other outcomes. The general section goes into great detail on the department's policy priorities. Standard forms. You must include the application for federal assistance, SF-424, the SF-424 supplement, which is a survey on ensuring equal opportunity for applicants, disclosure of lobbying activity certification, and the applicant recipient disclosure update report, HUD 2880. In addition, you must submit the facsimile transmittal, HUD 96011. Okay, and that concludes this presentation. We do want to wish you luck, and again, if you have any questions, please send them to Carissa L. Janis, Housing Program Manager, and that is her email and her office phone number. Thank you very much.